Hello, America. Welcome to the Ryan Mack Show. Today's episode is about the left's hatred of debate. Now, this has been on my mind for quite some time as I've watched more and more political debates take place, probably ever since Trump debated Hillary in 2016. They don't just hate debates, they outright despise them. And it's something that we need to pay attention to more closely as we get closer to election time, because the power of debate means whether or not you will vote for a particular candidate based on some of the things that they can talk about, substantive information that they can discuss at those debates. So before I get into some of the things that I want to talk about with debates and how the left hates the debates, basically, if you're not familiar with the debates or what even a debate is, how the process works, there's different debates in political spectrums. It is a formal discussion on a particular topic in a public meeting or legislative assembly, for the congressional debates, which they put forth on bills and laws, and opposing arguments are put forth. So throughout our history, we have principles on our founding documents and processes and how we do things. Some of them are congressionally held, where there's powers of debate between both parties in the chambers, and they discuss items on bills and how those rules take place. Then there's the political debate, in which your candidates are vying for your vote. And in order to just get their message out, they could just run ads. They can just speak directly to their constituents. But they also have a formal setting in which they themselves can talk to or in front of one another on issues that they agree with or disagree with. And you have a moderator, supposed to be unbiased. Now, I've seen national moderators be completely biased in their approach to the debates and their questioning. Take, for instance, Chris Wallace during the Biden and Trump debates, and the other anchors for the Trump and Hillary debates. So what we know about the left's despise for debates, I've experienced since probably 2016. My experiences began since then, watching the formal debates with Hillary and Trump and Trump with the other Republicans. Now, whether you like Trump or not, he is probably one of the best debates to see, whether he's taking on fellow Republicans or another Democrat candidate. He's got an entertaining way of destroying the competition in debates, whether it's name-calling or just outright belligerently calling them out for their lies. So the formal debate process. There's Lincoln-Douglas debate that was popular. During the Civil War, the biggest debate that took place in Congress at the time was the anti-slavery and slavery debates. Whether or not we should remain a nation that allows slavery or abolishes it. And that was probably one of the biggest debates. Okay. Now move forward. Okay. I'm not going to give you a history lesson, but I want to highlight, I think, three important theories as to why the left hates debates. But I'm going to get into those in a minute. So I had the pleasure recently going to a local debate here in Illinois for governor. The state of Illinois. Candidates were J.B. Pritzker, incumbent Democrat governor, and he took on Darren Bailey, the Republican candidate. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the two candidates, J.B. Pritzker is a Democrat. He's a hard-left Democrat. He is a tyrant. He is the biggest reason why Illinois has failed the last 4 years. Now, you can go into other details, other administrations we've had, but primarily Illinois is a thick blue state like California, New York, and others. JB's policies have financially destroyed the state, and his social policies have also turned into a nightmare. So I went to the debate with Darren and JB, and they discussed a lot of topics from the moderators' end, questions on crime, the economy, and abortion, which also sparks a huge debate. Now, if you were able to watch it or you haven't seen it, I urge you to watch it. It's very good. I'm not going to go through the whole aspects of the debate. But what I did notice is that when the two were asked the questions, you had Darren, who I thought was pretty well prepared. I think he could have done a little better on certain topics that was being asked. Overall, I think he did a very good job debating the actual substance of the questions and answering them. And JB had literally no answers that were substantive. And this brings me to my number one theory. Democrats don't appeal to logic or reasoning or facts. They appeal to your emotions. So number one, okay, this is why they ultimately don't do debating very well, because they like to appeal to emotions, and they can't do that when they're confronted with hard questions, because they never get hard questions, whether the debate or interviews, what have you, whatever the forum. Okay, so they don't get questions. So here's the deal. When you appeal to emotions, you have a topic, let's choose abortion. Okay, you're able to throw ads out there about Republicans are mean and they want to take away your right to choose as a woman to do whatever you want with your body. Mind you, they make policies about COVID and were no regard to your body, your choice whatsoever. But that's a different debate for another day. Emotionally, they take things like climate change and say we're all going to die by the year 2030 unless we talk about climate change and we throw money at climate change problems. The problem is if you throw money at everything, it doesn't solve anything. But that's neither here nor there. But so they appeal to your emotions. Okay, so how they do this, they make a guilt trip out of every topic they take. Abortion, climate change, crime. They become really good at taking your heart and spinning it around in circles and make you twisted on things that should take your emotions out of it. Whether you feel you believe strongly for a certain topic, they will drive home the fact that you should have an opinion very strongly on their side. So appealing to their emotions. They don't go by facts. They don't go by science. They appeal on your emotions. Okay. Numero two. Okay. The reasons why I think they hate debating. They don't have an answer or a rebuttal when the other side gives their response. They don't have a rebuttal other than, well, you're a liar, and that's not true. They can't have a comeback. They don't have an answer for anything that they have been confronted on. One thing I noticed about JB is that every time Darren made a statement of fact and about the policies that last 4 years, all JB had an answer was, well, that's not true. That's not true. This isn't true. That's a liar. You're a liar. All Democrats do is accuse Republicans of doing the very same thing they do all the time. Take, for instance, Biden. He can't tell the truth to save his mind. Everything out of his mouth is a lie. Every day. Now, most politicians lie. Don't get me wrong. But it's to the degree of which the Republicans lie and how often. They might lie about statements or over-exaggerate things. But Democrats, specifically this administration, they will tell you that it is raining outside and it is 95 and sunny. This is how bad the administration is and how Democrats today are at lying. And JB's answers from the debate the other night were just that. None of them were truthful. Darren never voted for any policy in Illinois since he's been senator and representative that involved defunding police. He has never voted anything opposite of what he is told and what his voting record shows. He's a very conservative candidate, and he votes on his record. He's honest with his record. JB, on the other hand, supports the current Safety Act, which is a very destructive policy that has been signed into law, and there's current lawsuits from it from state's attorneys across the state. But he's lied about that. He's saying that his Safety Act was making police more safe and making communities safer. And that, again, isn't true. Okay? And whatever they say, well, you're a liar, or you're wrong, you're misogynist, you're sexist, you're racist. Whenever they have an answer, they appeal to the emotions. Well, you're just racist. They don't have an answer of truth or a rebuttal that's legit a comeback. They just go on their morals of, oh, you're racist, you're a bigot, and you're a liar. They call everyone a liar, even though they themselves have lied more than anybody. Um, and I noticed this trend where instead of taking the debate where it should be set up before voting begins, now the Democrat candidates have chosen to agree to debates in the middle of early voting. So that has already started a process in most states. Early voting has already been happening. It's already happened in Illinois, and yet JB and Darren have debated already. So it kind of takes the fire out of having a debate. Normally, debates are supposed to be set up to the fact that you had the candidates position themselves to answer questions on their policies and their beliefs and how they would govern well before the voting actually begins. And that's crucial because you don't want to vote for somebody and then turn around and go, oh crap, I didn't know he would do this or he or she would do this. I wouldn't have voted. Take, for instance, Joe Biden. Had we known the Hunter Biden mess, which I'm sure liberals you should have been aware of, that this had been happening, they wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden. Well, shocker, the media doesn't play that information because they're an extension of the Democrat Party. But I digress. Anyway, so they appeal to your emotions, number one. Okay. Number two, they will flat out lie when presented actual statistics of facts. Crime statistics have been shown to every Democrat in this country, and it is jackknifed. Their entire narrative is that, oh, well, we're making things safer. We're closing our prisons because it's inhumane to house people in prison. No matter if they shoot somebody or murder somebody or rape somebody and kill little babies, who cares? Well, no matter the crime, they don't care. They will release criminals. They don't care. John Fetterman is another example of someone who shouldn't be even close in a race. He's a senator candidate, U.S. Senate candidate out of Pennsylvania. I'm sure all you guys know about him. He recently had a stroke within the last year. Okay, he's running for U.S. Senate. Highly, highly unlikely to do any real work in the Senate. And he's someone who would destroy the great state of Pennsylvania because he's left of Bernie Sanders. But nevertheless, I never want to make somebody because of their health problems. But this guy literally can't put a sentence together, much like the current commander-in-chief, Joe Biden. But he's got dementia and he's 80 years old. So that's obvious. Fetterman's case is that he's a trust fund baby who's never worked a day in his life and who just so happens to have a medical condition that allows him to, well, not allows him, but has changed the way his brain processes information. He can't hear very well. He can't understand communications unless it is read to him. He struggles with it. He had an interview the other night. He cannot get through an interview without closed captioning. He doesn't understand it. And on his issue, he chose to debate Oz. Dr. Oz is running Amendment Oz. You need to vote for him if you're in Pennsylvania. Please, please, please save Pennsylvania and vote for Oz. But he's choosing these weird random guidelines for debating Oz. The lights have to be low or dimmed. He has to have closed captioning. He has to have a quiet area. He's got to have a teleprompter. And the leftist media, these people who have their lips so tightly attached to the Democrats' asses that they can't detach them and figure out what they're doing. So you have the media covering up for these candidates. Joe Biden has no business running for president. John Fetterman has no business running for U.S. Senate. But here we are in a heated race in Pennsylvania, and John Fetterman, who's a stroke victim, is running for U.S. Senate. He's debating on terms on his own conditions because he has had a stroke and he can't physically or mentally comprehend long enough to be in a normalized debate setting. Okay, so number one, they appeal to your emotions. Climate change, abortion, the border, They all appeal to people's emotions. And on the left, they like that. They love emotions. They like to hate. They like to love different things. Democrats love emotions. They don't care about logic. They don't care about reasoning. They don't care about truth. Number two, they will absolutely lie when confronted, even when confronted with the facts and statistics. Okay, so that's why they don't like to debate, because they can't. Number one, they can't appeal to your emotions, and then it leads into number two, where they lie when they confronted the facts. Okay, so and now you get to number three, and I think this is a big one because it's showing a trend in recent years, and this has been since probably the end of Hillary and her failed run as president. Remember in 2016 where she campaigned most of that last part of the year, and then all of a sudden she just didn't for 2 weeks? Well, I think that trend has gotten even worse with Joe Biden and the current Democrat Party. He didn't campaign at all, and when he did, he was very well shortened and scripted to a certain amount of talking so that he can get through without stumbling, because once he goes off the teleprompter, once he stumbles off, he says something completely stupid and almost always true, what he really thinks. So that's why his handlers have to keep him on a short, tight schedule of rarely getting out in public. And when he does, it's these sycophantic, mouth-drooling Democrats in the media that will follow him and go everywhere with him and go after his answers and not follow up with any sort of substantive questions. They softball everything. So number one, appeal to emotions. And when they can't appeal to emotions, number two, they lie when confronted with the facts. Okay? And leads me into number three, the basement dwelling approach to campaigning removes the idea of having to debate. If you just stick to the cookie cutter, headline grabbing statements from time to time, the things that some people will catch up on it, ooh, I like that, I like that, I like that. You don't have to debate. You don't have to come out of your shell and debate. If you can sit at home in your basement, and for some on the left, the liberals in the listening, if you're listening, take the Hot Pocket out of your mouth, take the cotton out of your ears, turn down the YouTube porn that you're watching and listen. Okay, you can't you can't stay in your basement. You have to actually get up and meet people. And for a presidential candidate and Senate candidates and others across the country who do not want to debate because they're afraid of these three theories that I've thought of, that is a problem. As a voter, you should want two candidates, if you're undecided, especially if you're undecided. If you're undecided, you want two candidates to go up in front of each other multiple times before the election cycle, before voting begins, and give A, B, C, D, here's my policies, here's what I would do when I would govern, how I would rule. And then the other side would go, here's what I disagree with, here's what I would do, this is how I would govern. That gives the voter two informed opinions on how to vote. Now, the problem with that in today's current climate, you have, like John Fetterman, like Joe Biden, who obviously have cognitive problems. One, because of his age and dementia. Two, because he's had a stroke. And then you have someone who is in Arizona running for, I think, governor, Democrat Katie Hobbs, running against Kari Lake. By the way, if you're in Arizona and you happen to hear this, please, please, please vote for Kari Lake. Anyway, you have Hobbs, who is totally against the Second Amendment. She is refusing to debate Kari Lake. So this goes back to the overall theme. They refuse the debate process, which has been a fundamental process of our country politically, going back since the beginning. Our founding fathers had debates. The biggest debates happened while they were forming the Constitution. You didn't have the Republicans versus Democrats. You had the anti-federalists versus the Federalist. You had two different ideas, but they had one common goal, and that was, how do we make this country better? Right? So there's always been this spirit of debate. Both sides get an equal opportunity to discuss how they would rule a country, a state, a local government, And that informs the voter enough. Well, okay, I believe in this, but this candidate believes in this. That's an informed enough opinion to vote. When today's Democrats choose not to debate, that's a problem, because then they're allowed, like Joe Biden and John Fetterman, to just sit in their basement on their asses and claim, oh, well, if I just stick to the script, I don't have to actually get up and debate my policy issues. I can just wait and try to hope that I don't suck enough before the election comes. And that's a problem. If you're in a state where one candidate says, yeah, I'll debate, let's do it before voting, and the other candidate says no, I would urge you not to vote for the candidate who chooses not to debate. And here's why. It's very important that you become an informed voter, not just because you like certain things about the candidate says or does before the election, but actually know who that candidate is. Go out and meet that candidate. Go to the events. Like, I had opportunities to meet Darren Bailey several times, and his wife, and his campaign team. I felt very strongly, and I've told others about this, he is so accessible as a governor candidate in the state. I've met other candidates of other offices in our state. I recently ran into Representative Brady as well. But one side, it seems to me, now I don't know how accessible some of the Democrats are in my area of the state, but it seems to me, even as high office as the state governor candidacy, how accessible and easily approachable Darren Bailey is. Miles and miles ahead of J.B. Pritzker. You can't even get close to J.B. And even if you tried to shake his hand, he'd probably run and hide because he thought you were some MAGA extremist, because that's what the Democrats think. We're all just extreme terrorists. But anyway, the difference between the two candidates, even in here in Illinois, one is very approachable. He believes in common sense. He's a true conservative. He's a small business owner. He's a farmer in Southern Illinois. He's made his own money. He started a Christian school. He works hard every day. He answered the debate with questions and that he was given by the moderators, and he answered them thoroughly. And when he called out Pritzker for his lies, it was emphatic and it was explosive. And you need to call out the left when they make mistakes, especially when in judgment and policy and lies. You have to call them out. We can't allow this to continue to happen. So overall, my experience with the debate the other night was actually pretty entertaining. But it was a good experience to see just how opposite some of these candidates truly are. And especially from the left, their whole refusal to answer questions other than, well, he's a liar, she's a liar, that's not true, nope, that's not true, well, I think this. And they never answer the questions being asked. They give a statement about something about, like Kamala does, like Joe Biden does, like KJP does. The Democrats have a common theme. Don't answer, appeal to emotions, and when confronted with a fact, just continue to lie and brush it off. And 3, all else fails, just hide in your basement. It really is the 3 main problems with the Democrats and debates. And I urge you, going forward, please, 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 get to know the candidates. This day and age, we've got a couple weeks left. And if you're not sure who to vote for, you really are out of luck now. You need to vote common sense. If you like high gas prices, if you like the fact that we are spending almost $1 trillion on a Ukrainian war with no end in sight, if you like the fact that our food prices and our energy prices and everything else that we consume is more expensive, if you like inflation almost 15% on the real end of it, continue to vote Democrat. Now, if you're for more common sense and rights not being destroyed, like the ones that were during COVID when you allowed the government to tell you what to do, get a shot without getting your job, vote. You need to vote. This is so important with the election right around the corner and November 8th, and you can vote early too. There's early voting times. But it's so important to know the candidates that you're going for. And even if you aren't a Republican, get to know your candidate. The last thing you need to do is vote and then regret it. So I urge you, and this is no matter who you are, if you're a far left progressive nut who thinks that just these Republicans are just extremists, whatever. There's no convincing you. However, if you're like most of the people listening to my podcast and you're conservatives, or at least you're Republicans that will never vote Democrat because they just, they destroy your rights and your way of life, or if you've always voted Republican, don't just vote for the Mitt Romney types. Vote for the more conservative types in our party. However you vote on a well-informed basis. Get to know your candidates. And I know it's a little close to election time, but if you haven't known your candidate by now, you need to jump in and go, okay, what do I believe in? And what candidate best upholds those values? Okay? So, really it all comes down to those three things I talked about. Number one, Democrats will appeal to your emotions. Take your emotions out of it. Number two, when confronted with facts, they lie and brush it off. And number three, when number one and number two fail, they just sit in their basement and hope that you don't know how bad they suck until election day and hope that they make over the finish line. So that's really that simple. It's my three issues with Democrats and debates. They really don't want to debate, and when they do, they will absolutely obliterate whatever they can substance-wise. That's all for today's episode. Like my page on Facebook at The Ryan Mack Show. Follow me wherever you get your podcast. I hope to be on more platforms, but I'm on the main 3 or 4. So follow me there. And as always, catch me next week on next week's episode. See ya.